Around 20 miles from the frontline Ukrainian city of Bakhmut, where the country's forces are entering their 5th month of battle against the invading Russian army, lies the town of Seversk, a place nearly razed to the ground by Russian forces' relentless missiles and rockets. There, a 78-year-old schoolteacher named Olga lives in a basement with 19 other people sheltering from the war. Her apartment all but destroyed.
People have been saving all their lives, and me as well. And for me, for example, it is very scary to remain in this situation when my apartment is almost ruined. There are no windows, no doors. Moreover, I did a very good renovation because I was waiting for my son. My son was supposed to come back for vacation, and I was waiting for him, but I couldn't see him. Instead, his body was brought to me.
Despite heavy shelling and no power, water, or gas, Olga says she will not leave the town where 2 of her sons were buried. She did not specify the circumstances of their deaths. The residents are trying to stay positive. Olga shared how they recently celebrated the birthday of one of her neighbors in the basement.
We also sat down to celebrate. We prepared food, ate, drank tea, talked. That's how we spend our time. So everything is fine. May God grant peace. May God grant peace. We all want peace, for peace to come, to have a normal life.
Only a few of the more than 10,000 residents of Seversk remain in the town. Russian forces have repeatedly tried to retake it.
California resident Darren Gallagher woke up to this, damage to his Rio Del home after a strong 6.4 magnitude earthquake struck off the coast of Northern California, followed by more than 3 dozen aftershocks. Houses, a bridge, and several roads were damaged, with one road reportedly sinking due to the quake. Thousands of homes and businesses were left without power on Tuesday, and officials said there were gas leaks in the region. For Gallagher, his porch got the worst of it.
Sleeping on the couch and heard a big bang and stuff started falling, so I opened the door and this is what I opened it up to, right here. Whole front porch fell off. There's a dirt bike over there holding up that end.
I just remember walking out of the house and seeing like our house basically on the ground and our porch higher than the house.
Jackie McIntosh said she and her husband had put their Rio Del house up for sale, and they were expecting an offer. That was before the quake.
I don't think this house is going to be able to be brought back. There was an earthquake in, I think it was 92, that this happened to the house last time. And I don't know if it's gonna come back from this one.
Calls for help came in fast after the quake struck around 2:30 in the morning on Tuesday, said Rio Del City Manager Kyle Knopp.
Within the first 20 minutes, there was multiple calls. In the first hours, over 60 calls for assistance, 10 of which were medical related, one of which was unfortunately a cardiac arrest and fatality.
Knopp said the quake, which was felt miles away in San Francisco, definitely packed some punch.
It was also a long duration earthquake that certainly has had a major impact on this community.
He added that there was significant damage to Rio Del's water system and that some residents on Tuesday were left without it.
Thailand's Navy discovered the bodies of 6 Marines on Tuesday after a small warship sank in treacherous waters at the weekend. The military raced against time to find survivors, mobilizing helicopters, warships and unmanned drones off its central coast. Around 24 Marines were still unaccounted for by Tuesday afternoon. Some of those missing were without life vests. Admiral Cheung Chai Chom Cheung Pat, the Navy's commander-in-chief, said an investigation into the incident will take place.
Whether it be the facts surrounding the incident, the fact that the ship had sunk, claims that the life vests were insufficient for the additional Marines that went aboard the ship to join a mission in Seri Beach, all of this will have to be investigated to report back to the Royal Thai Navy.
สอบสวนแล้วก็รายงานข้อเท็จจริงทั้งหมดมาที่กองทัพเรือนะครับ
The Navy's Chief of Staff also said he was hopeful that there would be survivors, after one person was found alive after 41 hours. Dozens were forced to abandon the HTMS Sokho Thai late on Sunday after it was knocked over by 13-foot waves and strong winds. Malini Pudpong says her nephew Saharat Essa is one of those missing without a buoyancy aid.
กังวลมากอะค่ะมันกำลังทุกอย่าง
I'm very concerned. I'm concerned about everything when we have this kind of weather and winds. It's now been too long for them to be at sea, struggling with the tides and weather.
นานเกินไปกับการต่อสู้กับอากาศกับคลื่น
This is the body of a 21-year-old. He's not strong
อา
enough.
ยุ21 ปีมันไม่แข็งแรงพอ
The US-made corvette, in use since 1987, was carrying 105 military personnel. Most were saved before the boat sank, but dozens had to abandon ship in rafts and life jackets. The captain of the sunken boat, who was at sea for 2 hours himself before being found by rescue teams, said it would be hard to see survivors from the large rescue ships. The vessel suffered an engine malfunction as it took on water before sinking around 20 nautical miles off Prachuap Khiri Khan province.
U.S. stocks closed marginally higher on Tuesday after 4 sessions of declines, as fears of the impact of the Federal Reserve's plan to keep raising interest rates continues to weigh on equities. The Dow closed up nearly 0.33%, while the S&P gained 0.1%, and the Nasdaq ended up fractionally. Sylvia Jablonski is CEO and Chief Investment Officer of Defiance ETFs.
I think that in the near term, until we get past the Fed, really, and I think that that's going to be a Q1 story. There's going to be this kind of range-bound volatility, some instability, some pullbacks, maybe some pops off of those pullbacks, but we'll probably sit in a trading range and potentially even retest those June lows at this stage.
As for individual movers, General Mills shares sank after quarterly sales at its high-margin pet business took a hit due to key retailers cutting back on inventory, overshadowing an increase in its full-year earnings and sales forecast. Tesla tumbled after at least 3 brokerages cut the electric vehicle maker's target price on growing concerns of demand weakness and risk from Chief Executive Elon Musk's Twitter distraction. And Wells Fargo slid after U.S. regulators fined the lender $3.7 billion, citing widespread mismanagement of auto loans, mortgages, and deposit accounts.
The U.S. Consumer Financial Protection Bureau hit Wells Fargo with the watchdog's largest ever civil penalty on Tuesday, part of a $3.7 billion agreement to settle charges over widespread mismanagement of car loans, mortgages, and bank accounts. The consumer watchdog ordered the bank to pay a $1.7 billion civil penalty and another $2 billion to more than 16 million customer accounts for illegally charging fees on auto loans and mortgages, wrongly repossessing cars, and imposing illegal surprise overdraft fees, according to the CFPB.
So what happened is a lot of the record keeping was poor. And when the record keeping was poor, the bank made aggressive actions to fine, to sometimes evict or sell properties or repossess vehicles, when in fact they were not eligible to do so, right? It was their bad record keeping.
Max Wolf, CEO of Systemic Ventures, says while the bank can absorb the multi-billion-dollar fine, it will still sting.
So is it existential for Wells Fargo? The answer is clearly no, right? In other words, it doesn't imperil the survival of the bank or its ability to continue to do business. It is big enough, though, to show up on the radar as a penalty that means these things are not worth sort of indulging in a bank. And so I think in the age of the trillion-dollar banks, of which this is one, you need a larger fine. Otherwise, it doesn't have much of a prophylactic value for the public, because a fine that's a minor mention and a gain that's a major win, it doesn't really make for the right behavioral signal.
Wells Fargo said the settlement will resolve issues that have been outstanding for several years and noted in a statement it has accelerated corrective actions and remediation since 2020. The fine for Wells Fargo is the latest in a series of actions that underscore the CFPB's more aggressive posture under President Joe Biden's administration.